All right. So this is going to be Daniel number 9. Daniel number 9. So in the last video, we touched on Mystery Babylon, and I thoroughly demonstrated to you that that doctrine is going to be the foundation to understanding the rest of these passages in the book of Daniel. Now, um, Daniel and the book of Revelation, and I've said this in a joking sense, they can be called first and second Daniel and first and second Revelation. Okay, I say that as a joke, but it's still a truth because much of the book of Revelation completes the prophecies of Daniel, and much of the prophecies of Daniel complete the book of Revelation. So if you have those two books put together, you have a more complete picture of what's going on. Granted, if a person understands Old Testament prophecy. If a person becomes too fixated on world politics and current world events in their interpretation of prophecy, they are going to misunderstand the whole Bible. Okay? So let me give you an example. Imagine you were a Jew living during the time before Nebuchadnezzar. And you had these prophets showing up saying, Babylon is going to come and destroy your country and destroy your land and take you captive. Well, in those days, the Jews were living wicked in idolatry, and they were successful in their idolatry, and they weren't blessed by God, but they had a lot of prosperity because they were taking advantage of the idolatry and the wealth from the other Gentile nations, correct? So if you were a Jew, let's say in those days, and you had some prophet coming and telling you Babylon's going to come and take your people captive and annihilate you people, what would be your immediate reaction? Well, you'd say, no, that's not possible. That would never happen. How could Babylon come in here? Right? Well, the Jews were so wicked in the book of Ezekiel that they were even saying, no, Ezekiel, you're prophesying of the times that are far off. That's got nothing to do with us. Right? So I'm saying that to say this. I demonstrated in the last video that the Catholic Church cannot be the final kingdom of this world. The Catholic Church will be recompensed judgment by God for all the sins that it's done, and Rome will be broken. The iron legs of broken will break. God will snap them in half. But from our perspective, you, the Bible believer, cannot understand that. You can't perceive that idea is not realized to you the same way it's not realized to many of the Jews before Nebuchadnezzar came. Because you're not living in a time where that's possible to physically see. You see, much of the people in our Bible believing group are interpreting prophecy by sight. But the gift of prophecy, according to Romans 12, is by the proportion of faith. Because prophecy in the Bible is studying the future. And what is the future? Well, it hasn't come yet. So you might see elements of what will take place in the future, but your current present is nothing like what the future will be. You understand? So everyone's saying the Roman Catholic Church is going to be the kingdom of the Antichrist. It's going to be the Pope. It can't be the Pope. Right? I showed you from Mystery Babylon, the last video, that there's another kingdom after this one. That's point number one. Point number two, how are the Jews going to accept a false Messiah if the false Messiah is a European? No Jew can be a part of the Vatican. Hello? The devil comes with lying signs and wonders. Are the Jews going to accept a false Messiah from a guy who's in a woman's dress wearing a fake yarmulke, calling himself, oh, I'm the Father? No, you can't do it. They're not going to accept that. Why would the Jews accept a false Messiah from the people that have been persecuting them for 2,000 years? Well, that's because the Catholic Church is the enemy of the Christians, or the enemy of the Jews. The Catholic Church persecuted the Jews. They definitely did. They've contributed to a multitude of problems in politics, right? The Jesuits pretty much control everything from behind the shadows. So I'm not sitting here defending the Catholic Church. I think from the pit of hell. But we're going Bible. We're going by Israel's stubbornness and their patterns. When we go through the video on the Antichrist later in this playlist, the Antichrist is an Assyrian. He's half Jew, half Assyrian. He's somebody that looks like them. He's from their region of the world. He's someone involved in their politics. It's not someone from Europe. And it can't be from Europe. The Jews don't like dealing with those people. But wouldn't it make more sense if someone who's half of one of them, who looks like them, is from their region of the world and comes with lying signs and wonders? Yeah, that's more plausible. So no, the Catholic Church is not the kingdom of the Antichrist. The Mystery Babylon does not stay with the Roman Catholic Church. Okay? But people in our group are trying to interpret the future in light of what the present looks like. But the Jews in those days in the Old Testament were saying, no, that's not going to happen to us. Nebuchadnezzar's not going to do that. And from their position in history, it probably looked like Nebuchadnezzar couldn't do that, but he did. Right? Let me give you another example. Ready? I'll give you another example. The Siege of Tyre. Do you know what the Siege of Tyre is? No, I know you don't know what it is because people in our group don't teach about history. Okay? The Siege of Tyre in Israel, north of Israel, you have a place called Lebanon. Okay? Lebanon. And in Lebanon, there are two cities, Tyre and Zidon. These two cities are the subject of God's wrath in many places in the Bible. 6 chapters of Ezekiel are dedicated to just judging that one nation. Now, there's an extended prophetic reason why, but let's talk history for a moment. Okay? Now, what made Tyre and Zidon so special? Well, the city of Tyre was like the America of back then. It had all the wealth, it had all the power, and it was geographically impenetrable. You say, how? Well, the siege of Tyre had a land city on the border of Lebanon. But into the ocean, there was a floating city in the middle of the water where all the ships would come out and they would get all the resources like the gold and the rubies and the diamonds and the beryl and all that stuff. And so if you really wanted to attack Tyre, you had to break the city in the water because the actual border city was just a front. The actual city is in the water. How do you destroy a city with all that money, power, and wealth with walls that go to the top like Jericho and it's in the water? You can't fight on water. Well, if you were a person during the time of Ezekiel, Ezekiel says, yes, that's going to happen. Ezekiel prophesies in 6 chapters that somebody was going to come and annihilate the city of Tyre. And for 250 years, it didn't happen. Until Alexander the Great showed up. And you know what he did? He did a long 6-month plus siege. And one of his greatest feats as a Greek commander, got to hand it to the guy, by worldly standards, he was a military genius. He led a 6-month plus long siege against the city of Tyre and destroyed it, contrary to everyone's expectations. And when you read the prophecies in Ezekiel, the destruction of Tyre is said to be something that's so cataclysmic. It's something that all the nations would lament and wail over Tyre because it was the city of merchants. Everybody went there. So how did it fall? Because thus saith the Lord. God said it would happen, so it happened. So you right now are in this period in time where the Catholic Church has had 2,000 years of being an ecumenical destructive monster. You're looking at politics and going, there's just no way the Catholic Church could fall. How's God going to do it? People in the lost world, they say the same thing. America's not going nowhere. We're bringing America back. It's going to be okay. But they said, but every empire in the Old Testament, that was said about them too. How is it that Babylon was the most powerful nation at the time, and then Cyrus came in there and clowned them easy peasy like that, dude? Right? How is it that the city of Tyre was such an impenetrable water fortress monster, and some young kid from Greece comes in and does a siege and destroys it? Right? With men, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. You cannot interpret present prophecy in light of what you see in politics and all that stuff. There's nothing wrong with looking at politics and trying to understand what's going to take place, but everything you're seeing now are not fulfillments of prophecy. They are foreshadowings of what's going to take place. You cannot have America be the leading power in the end times. The Catholic Church and all of her power is through America. If there's no America, there's no Rome. You say, why? How is that the case? It's so simple, dude. And I promise you, this is all relevant to the prophecy that I'm about to teach you on. I promise you, this is all relevant. So, if America falls, where's Rome going to go, right? Doesn't Rome make all of its power off of hijacking and being a parasite to other nations? Right? Well, yes, Rome has power in the Middle East, but it's not that strong. You think the Muslims are that stupid? Rome has power in Europe, but the Europeans are already full of it. Those people are already atheists. They don't care. They're stupid. They're either hyper-religious or atheist. Okay? Rome already has Europe. So what is Rome going to do with Europe? And actually, Islam is taking over Europe. They usually got the Muslims doing their butt in the air shahada in the Vatican churches. So what's Rome going to do about that? Rome created that monster. Rome allowed Islam, because they're trying to be ecumenical, to come in, and now Islam is corrupting every part of the world, right? In a sense, Islam is God's sword of the Lord. God is letting these Muslims spread around the whole planet so he can use them to damn the nations. Because Islam is a very convenient weapon. Those people are uncontrollable. They will do anything for the sake of their stupid moon god, right? So if America falls, where's Rome going to go? Rome is the leading power in false ecumenical conservatism, right-wing politics in America. If there's no America, there's no Rome, dude. They have no power. All their financial power is from their fake archdioceses and all their political embarkments that they do in America. They don't have that in Africa and in the Middle East and all that stuff. The Muslims and the Jews won't let them stand for it. Rome has got to go. Rome is not the final kingdom of this world. I don't care what Jeffrey Grider says and Dr. Ruckman and all these good guys. It's not what the Bible teaches at all. The Bible does not give you 5 and 8. The Bible talks about Rome for less than like 10 verses in regards to end time prophecy and then doesn't even bother with it. That doesn't mean Rome won't be there in the future. It just won't be the world power. Mystery Babylon won't be there. It'll move somewhere else. And by the end, you're going to see that it's Egypt. And so the topic of our study today won't be a long one. It'll be Zechariah chapter 1. Zechariah chapter 1. Do not get caught up. I understand that end times is important to study, which is why I'm teaching it. I understand that we're in the last days and everybody is excited for the Lord's return. There's nothing wrong. I'm not condemning that. But do not become a pseudo-prophet. When I'm teaching you the scriptures here, I'm giving you verses and I'm giving you prophecy of what I believe is going to take place based on the word of God. But it takes a great deal of faith for me to teach that because I could be wrong. Okay. However, you don't want to be a pseudo-prophet. What's a pseudo-prophet? The people in our group who read 5 verses of some end time or antichrist references, and they see, this is talking about that guy in politics. Yeah, that's called dooming. Dooming. You know what dooming is? I guess if you're older than me, you don't know what dooming is. Doom scrolling is on your phone, flipping, looking at, oh, end times, this happening, that's happening, this is happening, right, etc., etc. The people that do that are no better than the fake news. Jeffrey Grider. I know I'm probably hard on this guy, but I cannot stand people who think they know everything when they know nothing. Okay? This dude's whole ministry is just doom posting. Well, Donald Trump, the world's ending, the Wall Street, the black Jesuits, this and that, all that stuff. That's not edifying. How is that discernment? The lost conservative, confused people know about the Illuminati. They know about the people in the back in Wall Street, right? And Charles Schwab and the fourth industrial movement. Yeah, they know all that. We knew all that. I knew that when I was lost. When COVID happened, I was not that surprised. Because anybody that's been that has any sort of knowledge of communist countries and human control, societal control from the government, this is not new. Okay, it's not new to us. So all this dude does is just post fear porn. That's all he posts. Do you as a Christian have anything to fear if the world gets worse? No, you know that means Christ is coming soon. You got nothing to worry about. What's the worst thing that can happen to you? Death. Oh, death. Okay, then you go to heaven and be with God. Right? So it's important to study end time prophecy. It's important to keep in mind what's going on in politics because you should be aware of your surroundings. There are Christians that say in the super spiritual, pious sense, we don't study politics. We don't participate in what's going on because that's of the world and the devil's the god of this world. And that's garbage, man. That's garbage, man. That's so garbage. You're to be a light in the world like Christ was, holding back the evil. That doesn't mean go participate in politics, but you should know what's going around you. Walking what? What did Paul say? Walking circumspectly. You should not just be in the dark, ignorant, and you don't know what's going on around you. But you should not be into fear porn, constantly looking at negative, jading yourself, because that creates nihilism. And people like Jeffrey Grider, who claim to be discerning, oh, I'm a prophecy teacher, but he's not a prophecy teacher at all. If he was really wanted to give you the truth about what was going on in the world, he would focus on what's going on in the Middle East, but he doesn't. He just whines about Donald Trump all day and all night. That's not prophecy, guys. Looking at a war in Iran and saying it's biblical and quoting one verse is not prophecy, guys. Oh, Russia did this and China did this. Doesn't that nation show up, Gog and Magog? That's not prophecy, guys. That's just taking two words from a verse and then, oh, well, that country is this country right now, so that must be biblical. Jeremiah, this, that. That's not what it is, man. I'm not being harsh to be arrogant. I'm being harsh because people are playing around with the word of God. You understand? A teacher, a Bible teacher, is an unenviable position. It's not a good position. I don't like being a Bible teacher because I have more to account for than you do. Because you may be learning from me, but I know full well how much I should and shouldn't know. You understand? If a Bible teacher ever gets to the point where he thinks he knows it all, and he's in the position to dictate to you what stuff means and doesn't mean, and he himself knows nothing, he's a fool. And most of these prophecy teachers online are fools. You got to be in the Word to teach prophecy. You can't be in politics all the time and freaking out by every little thing that happens. So let's look at Zechariah chapter 1. Zechariah chapter 1. I tell you these things for a reason. For people who are watching this playlist that are trying to learn prophecy, I'm not claiming that I have everything right, but I'm giving you more verses than these guys ever will. Deal with the verses, not with me. You understand? Zechariah chapter 1. Now, Zechariah has got to be one of the most esoteric prophets in the Bible. You see, why is he esoteric? Because this dude is weird. Let's be real. Half of this book is prophecies that are 100% easy to understand, and the other half of this book is cryptic, confusing stuff that even Zechariah, he was like, huh? He was like, what? He was asking the angel of the Lord, so can you explain this to me? He didn't understand his own visions, right? So Zechariah is a very difficult prophecy. But I really want you to keep something in mind. Although many of the prophecies in the Old Testament and Zechariah are very mysterious, and although they are very difficult to understand, because like I said, we're not in those periods right now, so it's hard for us to imagine physically and by sight what it's talking about, right? I always tell people, you need to interpret prophecy you don't understand in light of what already took place. Okay? So for example, there's a prophecy in Zechariah. I said Zechariah 1, but go to Zechariah chapter 5. Go to Zechariah chapter 5. Here's a prophecy that is extremely confusing. Okay? Zechariah chapter 5, you have this vision of these women, and they're carrying the ephah, and in verse 8 it says, he said, this is wickedness, and he cast it into the midst of the ephah, and he cast the weight of lead upon the mouth thereof. Watch it. Verse 11. He said unto me, to build an house in the land of Shinar, it shall be established and set there upon her own base. What? So the women are carrying this thing, and when they pour this thing, it causes all this toxicity. And he's saying, well, Lord, angel of the Lord, what's this for? Why are they holding the ephah? And he says, well, to build it in the land of Shinar. Obviously, this is a prophecy about the time of the end. Obviously. But if you insist that the Catholic Church is the mystery of the Antichrist and all that stuff, can you figure out what this is talking about? No, you can't. But it says the land of Shinar. Where's Shinar, guys? Babylon. Where's Babylon? Iraq. Right? All right, let me show you another prophecy. Go to Psalms 87. I'm showing you prophecy that I don't understand, that nobody understands. But I'm trying to push the foundation so that you can learn and build off of it, and maybe you can solve it. I'm not the only guy that God shows stuff to. Psalm 87 in verse 3, glorious things are spoken of thee, O city of God, Selah. I will make mention of Rahab, Egypt, and Babylon to them that know me. Philistia, the Gaza Strip, and Tyre, Lebanon, with Ethiopia, west of Egypt. This man was born there. Who? Obviously, this is a reference to the time of the end. Obviously. But this is one of the most mysterious chapters in the whole Bible. What man is born where? But could you solve this if you insist that the kingdom of the Antichrist is Rome? No, you can't. Because what are these nations here? Middle Eastern nations. Every single one of them. Go back to Zechariah chapter 1. What I'm trying to illustrate to you here, as I'm progressing through this playlist, is that all of the nations that God mentions in the Bible that show up again in the time of the end are Middle Eastern nations. They are not European nations. That doesn't mean they won't be there. But God's focus is the Middle East. Why? History began in the Middle East. It will end in the Middle East. It's that simple. The thing which hath been, the Garden of Eden, is that which shall be. The millennium is like the Garden of Eden, according to Isaiah. The thing which hath been is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. Who was one of the most biggest enemies of the Jews in the Old Testament? The king of Assyria. What's the name of the Antichrist? Well, we're going to go through it in the playlist. The Assyrian. Mystery Babylon, the last video. Who were the main bad guys that showed up? Babylon. Pharaoh. Who's that? Egypt. King of Assyria, right? Who shows up again? Babylon. See that? Then you get Greece. But when Greece has power, who does Greece have power over? Middle Eastern nations. Ptolemy, king of Egypt. He's a Greek. Antiochus IV Epiphanes. Antiochus III and his sons. Those people, where are they? Syrian. Greek kings over the Syrian Empire. All the dominion of these kings are Middle Eastern. They're not European. The majority of the prophecies in the Old Testament about the end of history are about Middle Eastern nations. Because at the end of the day, when you really break it down, and I dumb down the Bible for you, really dumb, what is the big controversy with God? Jacob and his brothers. It's that simple. Who shows up in the end time prophecies in the second coming? Edom. Who's Edom? Esau. Well, Esau are Israel's neighbors right now. Esau has been persecuting Israel, Jacob, his brother, for how long now? How about Ishmael? Some of the Arabs, some of them are descendants of Ishmael. Not all of them, but some of the Arabs are descendants of Ishmael. Some of them are descendants of who? Esau. The people in the Gaza Strip, the so-called Palestinians, who are they descendants of? The Philistines. Now, they're not Philistines anymore, but the same war that happened in Israel, in the Gaza Strip, is the same war that King Saul was fighting with the Philistines. Why? Because the thing which hath been is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there's no new thing under the sun. There's nothing that's going to take place in the future that wasn't something that already happened in the past. Are you understanding what's going on here? The Bible ends the way it begins. It began with the Garden of Eden. It ends with the Garden of Eden. It began with the Tree of Life. It ends with the Tree of Life. You see that? The first kingdom of this world is who? Babel. Who's the final kingdom of this world? Well, it'll be Egypt. Well, who's the spirit behind it? Mystery. Babylon. Born from Babel. The second kingdom of this world was Pharaoh, king of Egypt. When we go through this playlist and I show you that Mystery Babylon is Egypt, you know what happens to the Jews at the end of the tribulation period? Can you take a guess? God calls them out of Egypt and Assyria by the Red Sea. Now I'll show you the verses for that. I'm just teasing that for you to see in the future. But you understand what's going on here? History ends the way it begins. So all the nations that were enemies of Israel in the Old Testament are going to show up again in the time of the end. You'll understand. And when we go to the Beast of Daniel, you're going to see the ridiculous repetition of history down to the historical event, man. It's insane. So the reason why this is all important for you to understand is because when you're looking at the prophecy of Zechariah chapter 1, if you are stuck with the old system where Rome is the kingdom of the Antichrist and it's the Pope, you're not going to be able to solve any of these mysterious prophecies that keep bringing up Middle Eastern nations that show up in the future. So in Zechariah 5, I can't explain to you Zechariah 5. I don't know why they're building an FF in the land of Shinar. But there's a clue there. It's in the land of Shinar. It's a future reference. So there's something that's going to happen in the Middle East that's a future reference. You understand? I mean, to begin with, when Jesus comes to the second advent and the route that he takes, he's going through Damascus. He's going to the Mount of Olives. He's going through Edom and Esau. He goes through Mount Sinai. Where all that? Middle Eastern nations, man. You understand? So because these prophecies are so confusing, with this correct teaching on Mystery Babylon, we are now going to be able to solve the prophecy of Zechariah. Zechariah chapter 1, at least. So in Zechariah chapter 1, let's look at some context in verse 12. Then the angel of the Lord answered and said, O Lord of hosts, How long wilt thou not have mercy on Jerusalem and on the cities of Judah, against which thou hast had indignation these 70 years? So Zechariah is talking about the 70 years, the 70 years that just ended with Nebuchadnezzar in the captivity of Israel. And then the Lord answered the angel that talked with me good words and comfortable words. And the angel communed with me and said unto me, cry thou, saying, thus saith the Lord of hosts, I am jealous for Jerusalem and for Zion with a great jealousy. And then the rest of the passage is God comforting Zechariah with God's jealousy over Jerusalem. Now watch it. Here's the prophecy. Verse 18, then lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, 4 horns. Okay, let's be careful here. I'm not going to go through the verses again. What are horns, guys? Horns are kings. Kings. Horns are kings, right? So what does Zechariah see? He sees 4 horns, 4 kings. And I said unto the angel that talked with me, what be these? And he answered me, these are the horns which have scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. And the Lord showed me 4 carpenters. Then said I, what come these to do? And he spake, saying, well, these are the horns which have scattered Judah, so that no man did lift up his head. But these are come to fray them, to cast out the horns of the Gentiles, which lifted up their horn over the land of Judah, to scatter it. Very cryptic prophecy. But I believe we're in a position to solve it. Now, before I help you to solve the prophecy, I want to read to you an excerpt from Dr. Ruckman, and I want to show you an excerpt from C.I. Scofield. Let's look at what they say. Read along with me. I'm going to give you a picture for you to look on the screen. In Zechariah chapter 1, the Ruckman Reference Bible, Ruckman is going to say that I don't know. You take these horns and carpenters in verse 18 to 21. He says that no commentator has contributed anything more than wild guesses disguised as intelligent answers. Scofield says that the horns represent the Gentile world powers of Daniel 2 and 7. But the problem with Scofield is that he tried to match the metals of Daniel and the beasts of Daniel, which you can't do that. Now, Ruckman's going to say, then the kingdoms that scatter Israel, Judah, and Jerusalem will be Assyria and mystery Babylon under the leadership of the Antichrist in the tribulation. But he says that the carpenters, he's not sure, because it's Jesus who gets rid of Gentile kingdoms, not 4 carpenters or anything else. Now, Ruckman is going to claim in his note here that Greece never scattered Israel. Wrong. Completely wrong. Antioch IV Epiphanes did scatter Israel. So, not going to be too hard on Ruckman, though, because he said he didn't know. And then we have C.I. Scofield. C.I. Scofield's going to say that the vision is of 4 world empires which have scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. And this Scofield is going to go on to say that they possibly stand for Jehovah's 4 sword judgments. And he doesn't really know much either in his study Bible. So what is the problem with this prophecy? Well, because everyone's trying to match the beast of Daniel with the image of Daniel and then the horns and all that stuff, and it's just confusing. So let's slow down for a minute. Let's just analyze the prophecy, okay? No commentaries, no outside sources. Let's just read what it says, okay? Let's just read what it says. So I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, 4 horns in verse 18. Okay, so the context of the prophecy is that there are 4 kings. Okay, so let's make a little box here. There are 4 kings. So I'm going to divide it for you like this. Now, what are the 4 horns? Just once again, they are kings. Now, he's going to say in verse 19, what be these? And he answered me, these are the horns which have scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. Okay, now we can automatically, 2 of the horns cannot be Nimrod. And it cannot be Pharaoh. Why? Because these nations that are scattering, the horns that are scattering, well, the nation of Israel had to be a nation for them to scatter them, right? So the nation of Israel was not a nation when Nimrod was king of Israel, king of Babel, and the nation of Israel was not in Israel yet when Pharaoh was king of Egypt. So automatically, it can't be these 2, right? Okay. Now, 2 possible two possible candidates to be horns are going to be Nebuchadnezzar and Shalmaneser. Who is Shalmaneser? Shalmaneser is king of Assyria. But I'm going to argue here that Shalmaneser cannot be one of the four horns here. Why is it that Shalmaneser cannot be one of the four horns here? Well, the problem is Shalmaneser. So Shalmaneser took the northern 10 tribes of Israel captive. So when you're reading this passage, you say, well, why can't it be Shalmaneser? Because doesn't the text say in verse 19, well, these are the horns that have scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem? See, the text says Israel. Well, didn't he scatter the northern 10? So why can't it be Shalmaneser? Well, I was to argue that one of the four horns cannot be king of Assyria. The reason why I'm going to make that argument is because in order to get the interpretation that the horn is scattering the northern 10 tribes, you have to read Israel that way. That's being assumed in the text. But I want you to consider something. When Israel went apostate, there were a lot of Jews in the northern 10 tribes that migrated down to the south, where? In Judah. And they worshiped the God of their fathers. So you had people from all 12 tribes residing in the southern land of Judah, in Jerusalem as well. So if you're reading this text here, it's going to say, these are the horns which have scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem, the tribe of Judah and the tribes of Israel, not the northern 10, right? Let me show you that. Go to 2 Chronicles 11 so I can show you what I'm referring to. 2 Chronicles chapter 11. 2 Chronicles 11. 2 Chronicles chapter 11 and verse 13. 2 Chronicles 11:13. Gonna say, and the priests and the Levites that were in all Israel resorted to him out of all their coasts. For the Levites left their suburbs and their possession and came where? To Judah and Jerusalem. Why? For Jeroboam and his sons had cast them off from executing the priest's office unto the Lord. And he ordained him priests for the high places and for devils and for calves which he had made. And after them, after the Levites, out of all the tribes of Israel, such as set their hearts to seek the Lord God of Israel, came to Jerusalem to sacrifice unto the Lord God of their fathers. All the tribes of Israel. So all the tribes of Israel, all of them that wanted to seek the Lord, came to the south of Judah to worship God with the Levites. The Levites even left their possession to come and do that, right? Which means what you're reading here in Zechariah chapter 1, verse 19, is not talking about the northern 10 corporate tribes being scattered. It's talking about all the 12 tribes who are in Judah being scattered. That's the distinction. You understand? So when you read the prophecy here, verse 19, these are the horns, the kings that have scattered Judah, the tribe of Judah, Israel, the tribes of Israel, and Jerusalem, the people of Jerusalem. And the Lord showed me 4 carpenters. We're going to get to the carpenters in a minute. So who was the first king that specifically scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem? Well, that would be Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar. We'll put him for short because his name is too long. He was the first one. He's the first one that went to Judah, and he scattered Judah and Israel and Jerusalem because all 12 tribes were in Judah. And then obviously at the Battle of Carchemish, he went in and he destroyed Pharaoh Necho, and he destroyed Judah and Jerusalem, right? So there's no doubt that the first horn, the first king that fulfills this prophecy is Nebuchadnezzar, right? Okay. Now, let's keep looking at the prophecy. Verse 20, and he showed me 4 carpenters. Then said I, what come these to do? And he spake, saying, these are the horns which have scattered Judah, so that no man did lift up his head. So he's saying, these are the horns which scattered Judah, so that no man can lift up his head. But these, the carpenters, are come to fray them. What does fray mean? To cast out. So he's saying, well, these are the horns that do what? Scatter Judah. But Then he's going to say, but the carpenters are come to do what? They are come to fray the horns, to cast them out. And the thing is that in the prophecy, it says that the horns are what? Horns of the Gentiles. So these horns are also Gentile kings. So that's a confirmation that this is what this is Nebuchadnezzar's a good fit for this. And what does it say? What does it say? He says, these are come to cast out the horns of the Gentiles, which lifted up their horn over the land of Judah, to scatter it. Well, when these horns came in, when they scattered it, where did they do it to? In the land of Judah, which confirms what I was telling you before. These horns went to the land of Judah. They scattered all 12 tribes and Jerusalem from the land of Judah. So that's the confirmation there that verse 19 is not talking about Shalmaneser scattering the corporate 10 tribes in the north. Not talking about that. Okay, so then the logical conclusion is, what are the carpenters? Well, in the Bible, God sends saviors. He sends judges, right? What's a judge? Well, in the book of Judges, God would send a judge. He would reign over Israel. He would judge Israel for 40 years or whatever. And then the next judge would take over. And then the next judge would take over, right? But the carpenter is a little different. The carpenter is doing what? He's fraying, he's casting out this horn. But the carpenter is not a judge. A carpenter sounds like this person builds something. So you know what this prophecy is talking about? The first carpenter would be Cyrus. You see, the horn of the Gentile would come in to scatter Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. But he says that the carpenter comes to fray the previous horn, to cast them out. Now, what did a carpenter do? He built something. So what's implied from the text is that when this carpenter comes in to fray the horn, to cast him out, that he is somebody who not only casts out the previous horn, but he rebuilds the temple in Jerusalem. You see that? So then who was the horn? Who was the carpenter that came in to fray, to cast out Nebuchadnezzar? Cyrus. Stay in Zechariah. And go to Isaiah 13. Isaiah 13. Here's one prophecy on this. Isaiah 13, verse 15. Everyone that is found shall be thrust through, and everyone that is joined unto them shall fall by the sword. Their children shall also be dashed to pieces before their eyes. Their houses shall be spoiled, and their wives ravished. Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, referring to Babylon. And watch it, which shall not regard silver, not for gold, they shall not delight in it. Their bows shall also dash the young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of their womb. Their eyes shall not spare their children. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. And that's exactly what happened. Jeremiah 51, God says he'll make Nebuchadnezzar, Babylon, a burnt mountain. They torched it and burned it down, dude. Right? But then what did Cyrus do? Go to Isaiah. Check this out. Isaiah 45. Or Isaiah 44, verse 28. That saith of Cyrus, he is my shepherd and shall perform all my pleasure, even saying to Jerusalem, thou shalt be built, and to the temple, thy foundation shall be laid. 45:1. Thus saith the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand have I holden to subdue nations before him. I will loose the loin of kings, to open before him the two-leaf gates, and the gate shall not be shut. And if you go all the way down, we've talked about this before, it's going to say that in verse 13, I have raised him up in righteousness, I will direct his ways. He shall build my city, and shall let go my captives, not for price, nor for reward, saith the Lord of hosts. So, who rebuilds the temple and the city of Jerusalem? The first carpenter is Cyrus. He cast out and frays the previous horn. See how interesting that is? All right, now here's where it gets tricky. Who is the next horn? The next horn in history who does this is not recorded Well, it's prophesied in the Bible, but it's not recorded. It would be Antiochus for Epiphanes. Antiochus for Epiphanes. Now, who is the man historically that helps to rebuild the temple after the revolution, the rebellion of the Maccabees against Antiochus for Epiphanes? The name of this man historically is Judas Maccabeus. He, historically, according to Jewish antiquity, he withstands Antiochus for Epiphanes. And he's the one that goes against them. And by the way, the unfortunate thing is that a lot of the history about this guy is found in the Apocrypha. It's found in First Maccabees. Now, I don't believe in the Apocrypha. The Apocrypha in Second Maccabees has Antiochus for Epiphanes dying in 3 different ways in 3 different places, okay? So the First Maccabees, if you want to look at it from an atheistic perspective, is only partially reliable, but it's not scripture. But Second Maccabees is complete garbage. It's complete apocryphal, pseudo nonsense. But nevertheless, the Jews now, I mean, listen, I've lived around Jews. They walk around with white shirts that say the Maccabees because they know about this. This is a very important thing in their history that they remember, that they commemorate, that they were able to defeat this guy. Okay? So, Judas Maccabeus, by the way, it's so interesting. Judas's name, Maccabeus, according to tradition, means hammer. That's just a weird coincidence. And what is a hammer? Well, go to Isaiah. Go to Isaiah 41. What's a hammer? Is a hammer not a carpenter's weapon of choice or tool of choice, so to speak? Isaiah 41 verse 7. So the carpenter encouraged the goldsmith, and he that smootheth with the hammer him that smote the anvil, saying, it is ready for the soldering, and fastened it with nails, that it should not be moved. What did he tell him to use? A hammer. Just a weird coincidence. Now, after Judas Maccabeus, the temple is there, obviously, because when you read the 4 Gospels, it's obviously there. Judas Maccabeus cast out his people, and those rebellious Jews who fought against him, cast out Antiochus for Epiphanes. Now, after that, what is the next horn that it destroys the temple? So watch it. Nebuchadnezzar cast out Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. Cyrus frays him, casts him out, and rebuilds the temple. Antiochus for Epiphanes goes in to defile the temple and to defile Jerusalem for a period of over 2 years. And Judas Maccabeus comes to fray out this horn, and he withstands him according to antiquity. Now, who is the next one that comes in and takes over? Well, the third horn is going to be Rome. It's going to be Rome. When did Rome scatter Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem and defile the temple? Well, 70 AD, did it not? Who is the king that happened under? Well, it's technically Titus. So Titus is technically the one that did it, but the leader is technically Domitian. I'm not gonna really belabor the point on this. It's either Titus. I put Rome here. Let me put a Domitian. It's technically Titus. I'm not really gonna belabor this too much. But you get the point. It was Rome, right? Now let me ask you a question. Rome has been in power for 2,000 years. Where's the third carpenter? Is there a temple right now? No, there's no temple right now. So where's the third carpenter? Now, if a temple has to be here, be rebuilt, aren't they looking for a third temple right now? Well, the Jews are waiting for the third temple. When that third temple shows up, who destroys the third temple? The Antichrist. And what is the Antichrist? He is the fourth horn. So then who's the fourth carpenter? Well, that's simple. Jesus Christ. So you know what the Gospels say? You know why Jesus showed up as a carpenter? Well, him showing up as a carpenter is supposed to be a callback to the fact that he created the worlds. He created the universe. But he picked a carpenter because he's the fourth carpenter of Zechariah's prophecy. He builds the final temple, the millennial temple. And what does he do? He casts out the previous horn of the son of perdition. So who's the third carpenter? Right? And by the way, how do you know that the Antichrist is going to defile the temple and destroy it? Go to Zechariah 14. It's prophesied. Zechariah 14 and verse 1. Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, and thy spoil shall be divided in the midst of thee. For I will gather all nations against where? Jerusalem to battle. And the city shall be taken, and the houses rifled, and the women ravished, and half of the city, what? Shall go forth into captivity, and the residue of the city of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Okay, so listen carefully. Modern day Israel. I don't care what Dr. Ruckman taught or any of these guys taught. They're completely wrong. These Jews in Israel are the real Jews from Abraham, but they are not the fulfillment of the regathering to Israel. They are not. God, look, Domitian showed up and he cast out Judah, correct? Okay, he cast out Judah. The Jews have to be regathered back to their land in order for the temple to be rebuilt, in order for the Antichrist to make the Jews go back into captivity. You understand? None of those prophecies about Jews coming back to their land, like Ezekiel 37 and Isaiah 11 and all those prophecies are not fulfilled. They are not. You understand? Right now, the Jews, we're under Rome right now. We're in Rome. Now, in order for the Antichrist to defile the temple and destroy the Jews and take them into captivity, the nation of Israel has to exist. The Jewish people have to already be in their land in order for the son of perdition to free them. You understand? So we're under Rome right now. What exists? The nation of Israel. What's missing? The temple. Somebody has to fray Rome and rebuild the temple. And then when that temple is built, then the son of perdition can come in and destroy that temple, right? And take the Jews into captivity and scatter Judah once again. But then the final carpenter, Jesus Christ, will fray the son of perdition. He will cast out the fourth horn because he's the fourth carpenter. Go to Isaiah 45 again. Go to Isaiah 45. When God speaks about regathering the land of Israel back to their land, the Bible only speaks about it happening 2 times. The first time was under Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, listen, this is very important. The first time was under Nebuchadnezzar. Who was the king that frayed out Nebuchadnezzar? He cast him out. Cyrus. Correct. So listen, watch. The first real regathering that God pays attention to is under this. I'm getting ready to make a point because our group has this stuff way off. Right? That's the first real regathering back to the land from their captivity, correct? Okay. I know I said Isaiah, but I just want to prove to you that the Bible talks about it only being twice. Go to Isaiah 11. Go to Isaiah 11 and verse 10. And in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people. To it shall the Gentiles seek, and his rest shall be glorious. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again, what? The second time, to recover the remnant of his people, which are left from where? Assyria, Egypt, Pathros, Cush, Elam, Shinar, Hamath, and the islands of the sea. The second time. Not 3 times. Not 4 times. The second time. But isn't that confusing? Well, didn't they come back to the land 2 other times? Well, yeah, God's ignoring this. God is ignoring this. You see, why is God ignoring this? Because this breaks, in God's mind, if he includes these, it's going to break the sequence. You say, well, what are you talking about? All right, check it out. What is Nebuchadnezzar? Well, he's one of the greatest Antichrist types in the Bible. What is Cyrus? What does Cyrus do? He frays and casts out one of the greatest Antichrist types in the Bible. What does Cyrus do? He rebuilds the temple. What does God call Cyrus? Isaiah 44. Isaiah 44. What does God call Cyrus? Verse 28, that saith of Cyrus, he is my what? My shepherd. Isn't Jesus Christ the good shepherd? Keep reading. He is my shepherd and shall perform all my pleasure, even saying to Jerusalem, thou shalt be built, and to the temple, thy foundation shall be laid. What is he called in Isaiah 45:1? The Lord saith to his what? Anointed. So let's check it out. What is Cyrus? He's God's anointed. What is he? My shepherd. What is he? A carpenter. The first carpenter. Keep reading Isaiah 45. Check it out. Verse 2, I will go before thee and make the crooked places straight. I will break in pieces the gates of brass and cut in sunder the bars of iron, right? Now watch this. Verse 4, for Jacob my servant's sake and Israel mine elect, I have even called thee by thy name. I have surnamed thee, Cyrus, though thou hast not known me. God named Cyrus 150-something plus years before he was born to do this, right? But what's interesting is that although Jesus is the Word and God the Father obviously knows Christ, God says he surnamed Cyrus. Well, isn't Jesus surnamed in like 5 different passages in the Old Testament? He's not called Jesus, but in Isaiah 9:6, his name is Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. A virgin shall conceive. He shall be called what? Emmanuel, God with us. Jesus is surnamed long before he's born. He's just not called Jesus Christ. But in the Old Testament, Jesus is called what? He's God's anointed. Moshiach. What's that? Messiah. Keep reading. Keep reading. Verse 11. Thus saith the Lord, the Holy One of Israel and his Maker, ask of me of things to come concerning my sons and concerning the work of my hands, command ye me. I have made the heaven, the earth, and created man upon it. I, even I, have stretched out the heavens and all their hosts have I commanded. Now watch this. Watch this carefully. I have raised him, Cyrus, up in righteousness. I will direct all his ways. He shall build my city, and he shall let go my captives, Israel. Not for price, nor for reward, saith the Lord of hosts. Now, hold on a minute. That's talking about Cyrus. But Jesus is God's anointed. He's the 4th carpenter. He is the God's shepherd over Israel. He's the shepherd of Israel. So what does that mean? That means that Cyrus is a type of Christ. So when you're reading here in verse 13, I have raised him up in righteousness. Well, that's also Jesus. I have raised Jesus up in righteousness. I, the Father, will direct all his ways. He, Jesus, shall build my city. He shall let go my captives, Israel, not for price, nor for reward, saith the Lord of hosts. Now watch this in verse 14. Thus saith the Lord, the labor of Egypt and the merchandise of Ethiopia and of the Sabaeans, men of stature, shall come over unto thee, and they shall be thine. They shall come after thee. In chains shall they come over. They shall fall down unto thee, and they shall make supplication unto thee. All these are referring to Israel, saying, surely God is in thee, and there is none else. There is no God. So watch it. In history, what is Cyrus saying? The Lord God of heaven hath commanded me to build a house at Jerusalem. What does he do? He rebuilds the city. He said, the Lord his God be with him. Let him go up. So when Jesus Christ takes the throne of David, he will cast out the real Antichrist, not Nebuchadnezzar. The 4th carpenter, the real shepherd, the real anointed, will cast out the Antichrist, and God will regather his remnant the second time. And Jesus, like Cyrus, will say, I, the Lord thy God, am with you. See that? Let him go up. Where? To Jerusalem. And the same way that Cyrus rebuilt the temple in the first gathering, Jesus will build the final temple in the final second regather. And where they regather from, according to Isaiah 11? Middle Eastern nations and the four corners of the earth. Because Jesus' judgment and the second coming is against all the Muslims and the Middle Eastern nations that were persecuting Israel. Esau, Ishmael, the Hagarenes, the Philistines, all those people. And so you have a mirroring of history. You have a mirroring of history. Cyrus and his regathering perfectly matches this one. So the question is, right now, the temple is not built. There needs to be a king that will fray and cast out Rome. Because he needs to build the temple and cast out Rome for the Antichrist to make his way in. So the question is, who is the third carpenter? Well, sorry, I have no idea. Some people say it could be Donald Trump. It's possible. I don't know. I'm not looking for the third temple. I believe it's most likely the case, and we'll go through this in the playlist. Now, I could be wrong, but my personal opinion is that the temple will begin to be built in the beginning of sorrows, at the beginning of sorrows. I believe that. The reason why I believe that is because, let's say Donald Trump, let's say he authorizes to build the temple. Well, Cyrus authorized it, and God gave Cyrus the credit for rebuilding it. But the temple of Israel was not finished until Artaxerxes went in there, and he finished it. So let's say that Donald Trump authorizes the rebuilding of the temple. Well, he doesn't have to be the one that finishes it. He just needs to authorize it. But that doesn't mean that the rebuilding of the temple will finish until some other later president or some other later king, right? So I personally believe, and when we look to the Beast of Daniel, you're going to see this, that Israel is going to have the most power they've had in ever at the start of the beginning of sorrows in Daniel's 70th week. And a war is going to break out where that mosque of Omar, where the Muslims have the Temple Mount, will get destroyed as like collateral damage, and that will allow the Jews to rebuild the temple. But that's going to be a study for the Beast of Daniel. We're not quite there just yet. So I'll make the board available. Grace be to you all.